Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a time when the skies were suddenly filled with objects no one could explain. Mysterious lights, incredible speeds, shapes people had just never seen before. And this wasn't just, a fleeting rumor. It sparked this widespread curiosity, but also outright fear and even wild speculation across the entire nation. So in that kind of chaotic environment, what would the authorities do? How would they respond to a world suddenly seeing what the newspapers quickly started calling flying discs or flying saucers? It's a moment in history that really, it changed everything.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how immediately and how intensely these phenomena captured attention, both public and official attention. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the very first batch of official FBI documents that deal with these sightings. We're looking specifically at July and August of 1947. And these aren't just isolated reports. They really represent the foundational accounts that genuinely kickstarted this whole national conversation around these mysterious aerial phenomena.
Right, the very beginning of it all.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's actually just the beginning of a much larger story. The FBI holds 16 key documents about these early incidents. For this initial exploration, we're focusing on the absolutely crucial first three. They really lay the groundwork for everything that follows.
And these aren't just like dry, bureaucratic files, are they? From what I've seen, they're incredibly vivid snapshots. A bewildered nation trying desperately to make sense of the unexplainable. They captured detailed eyewitness accounts, early military observations, and even some, bizarre instances of physical evidence supposedly left behind.
That's right. As we explore these files, we'll be looking at original FBI reports, internal communications exchanged between various government agencies. You can almost feel them scrambling for answers, and even contemporary newspaper articles that circulated at the time. All of it paints a truly dynamic picture of these early days and the frantic scramble to understand what precisely was happening in our skies.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. And the public frenzy, you could say, truly ignited. While there were definitely scattered reports before 47 unexplained aerial stuff.
Bits and pieces.
Right. But the national obsession, the intense official interest, it really crystallized with Kenneth Arnold's sighting, June 25, 1947. And he wasn't just some casual observer, was he? That's key here.
Absolutely not. He was highly credible, a successful businessman from Boise, Idaho, and crucially, an exceptionally experienced pilot. Over 7,000 hours of flying time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was flying his Calair A-2, which is a single-engine land plane, but it was specifically designed for high performance in mountainous terrain. So he was used to precise observation in challenging conditions, knowing what weather looks like, what other planes look like up there.
Makes sense. So his report carried weight.
Significant weight. And his story, it quickly captivated the world. Arnold's account, and it's meticulously detailed in these FBI documents we're looking at, describes seeing 9 distinct objects, metallic looking.
9 of them.
Okay. He saw them moving in a clear formation, an echelon formation, exhibiting what he vividly described as an undulating motion, almost like they were skipping like a saucer across the sky.
That's the famous phrase, right, where flying saucer came from.
Essentially, yes, though ironically not quite what he described shape-wise. But the motion, that skipping idea, caught on. He estimated their incredible speed at approximately 1,200 miles per hour.
1,200? In 1947? That's staggering.
Staggering. He emphasized it was much faster than the average plane of his time. Just to give some context, the fastest piston-engine aircraft then, like the early jets, the XP-86 Sabre prototypes, they were just starting to break the sound barrier around that time. Maybe 600, 700 mile per hour tops.
Right, and certainly not with the kind of maneuverability he described.
Exactly. And he observed these objects at various heights, sometimes as low as 10,000 feet. Other times they appeared distinctly glowing or luminous.
Okay, so not just metallic reflections, sometimes emitting light.
Apparently so. And while the popular media, very quickly coined the term flying saucer, and many public reports started describing them as round or oval, Arnold himself, he was quite precise. He stated they were crescent-shaped.
Crescent-shaped. Interesting, like a boomerang almost.
Sort of. He said longer than wide and approximately 1/4 of their width and thickness. Kind of a blunt leading edge, more pointed trailing edge.
That's quite specific.
Very. And he also made a really important point. They did not appear to whirl or spin, but seemed in fixed position.
So not spinning discs, flying in a fixed orientation.
That's what he reported,
Yeah.
which directly challenged some of those initial popular notions.
Yeah.
This pivotal sighting occurred over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state near Mount Rainier. And as you said, his background as a seasoned professional pilot lent this undeniable credibility, made it exceptionally difficult for authorities to just dismiss it out of hand.
Yeah, you can see why. So his account maybe initially met with some skepticism, like you hear, oh, maybe it was reflections or persistent vision, optical tricks.
Or even snow blindness was suggested.
Right, but those explanations didn't really stick, did they? The genie was, as they say, out of the bottle. What started as one pilot's incredible, perplexing story, it just exploded.
It really did. Within weeks, these FBI files show that more than 200 people across the country reported similar sightings.
200, that quickly.
That quickly. Not just in Washington anymore, but spreading like wildfire. New Mexico, Missouri, California, many other states.
Wow.
And the newspaper headlines just went crazy. Sensational titles reflecting the public's fascination, but also, growing alarm. We see reports documented in the files like, believe it or not, 27 states see those flying saucers.
27 states.
And another one, who saw saucers? 40 states in the game.
Uh-huh.
It really captured the public imagination and just illustrated the sheer unprecedented scale of this phenomenon. And this brings up an important point about that initial impact.
Yeah.
Why did Arnold's report resonate so profoundly? Why did it trigger such a cascade of similar claims? It became the template, really, for flying saucer sightings.
His credibility must have been key.
I think so. His credibility as an experienced pilot. He specifically highlighted, and this is in the files, that he based what he had written on positive facts. He wasn't making a lot of wild guesses, even though he admitted he could have.
He stuck to what he saw.
Right. But it was undeniably also the sheer volume of subsequent sightings that followed almost immediately. It lent this powerful, maybe circumstantial, but powerful sense of validation to his initial report. The FBI files clearly show this rapid contagion of reports, and that quickly pushed the Bureau to issue directives on how to handle them. You can sense the concern.
Concern about what specifically? The objects themselves or the public reaction?
Both, but initially maybe more the reaction. There was a palpable fear within official circles of mass hysteria, or just individuals seeking personal publicity, jumping on the bandwagon.
Right, managing the chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. The Bureau was keen to manage that. And this reveals a crucial early insight for the FBI, I think. The flying discs were less about potential visitors from space, at first anyway, and more about information control, and the potent threat of Cold War anxieties manifesting as public panic, or maybe even foreign subterfuge.
Ah, the Cold War angle kicking in right away.
Immediately. And on a personal level, these documents show Arnold's life was significantly impacted. His business suffered greatly.
Really? How so?
Because people along his routes, his business routes, would constantly stop him. They'd be waiting for him, wanting to question him about what he'd seen.
Oh, wow. That must have been intense.
He openly admitted it remained as much a mystery to him as it was to anyone else. He said he had no answer for it, and it was as much a mystery to him as it was to anyone else.
So even the guy who started it all was just as baffled.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It perfectly illustrates how a credible witness's account, once it goes public, can rapidly transform these local oddities into a national phenomenon, often at significant personal cost.
Okay, so while Kenneth Arnold's account definitely lit the fuse for the public, our files reveal another really intriguing incident. And this one happened just 2 days before his big, widely publicized report.
That's right. A bit earlier chronologically.
This one unfolded in Norfolk, Virginia, and it provides a rare, concrete piece of early visual evidence. We're talking about a fascinating report from a 13-year-old boy named Billy Turenline.
13 years old.
Yeah. And against all odds, he managed to capture what he described as a flying football on camera. So this predates Arnold's public account, but it's an incredibly important early data point in the timeline.
It really is. And this incident gives us a unique lens into what people were actually seeing. It makes you ask, was every object observed a disk? Or were there other shapes, like this football, being reported right from the very beginning?
Good question. What did Billy describe?
His detailed observation, recorded in these documents in his newspaper interview, described seeing one large black object followed by two smaller ones.
3 objects, then.
3. Billy initially thought they could have been large balloons, maybe some kind of experimental weather balloon, but he quickly clarified, definitely these were not the toy-type balloons, and their movement kind of dispelled that idea for him.
How were they moving?
He noted they were moving very fast, appearing much faster than the average plane of the time, and extremely high. He said they appeared above the clouds and much higher than the average plane travels in the city of Norfolk.
So high altitude, high speed, similar themes to Arnold.
Similar themes, yes. But a truly unique and particularly interesting detail in his account, he mentioned a white mist followed each of the three
A
objects.
white mist, like a contrail.
Possibly, but he described it as a mist. It's not something we see consistently in every report from this period. That detail alone makes his observation stand out. He also noted they traveled from southwest to northeast, which was consistent with the slight breeze on what was described as a hazy, cloudy day. When he was interviewed by the Ledger-Dispatch reporter George Herber, Billy specified that the object looked and moved more like a football rounded and oval rather than disc-like.
So flying football wasn't just to catch a headline, it was his description.
It seems so. He estimated their speed at about 600 miles an hour and their altitude around 5,000 feet, just below the clouds, he said.
Okay, slightly different estimates than Arnold, but still fast and high.
Right. And that distinctness of the white mist detail that really sets this sighting apart and adds significantly to its mysterious nature, pushes it beyond an easy explanation.
And imagine being 13, seeing something like that, and having the presence of mind to actually grab your camera.
Incredible, yeah.
Billy's experience really highlights the challenge, doesn't it? Documenting these fast-moving, high-altitude things with the technology they had back then.
Oh, absolutely. Film cameras, manual focus.
He reported that when he first saw the objects, they were way off in the distance. He could see them from his third-story porch without even needing to, crane his neck. But the moment he decided to get his camera, which, would have been a manual, probably clunky device, it took him about 20 to 30 seconds.
He fumbling around, getting it ready.
By then, these objects, moving incredibly fast, were almost directly overhead.
So he had to react quickly.
Yeah, he had to stoop down and look almost perpendicularly up to get the shot, which is why in the newspaper clipping that captured this moment, his porch railing is prominently visible at the bottom of the frame.
Ah, okay. That explains the composition.
It speaks to the dynamic, fleeting nature of these early sightings and just how hard it was to get clear, definitive evidence.
In the newspaper clipping itself, from the Ledger-Dispatch, it prominently features Billy and his photo. But what's particularly telling is how they labeled the object. The headline emphasizes it as a flying football, underscoring the oval shape, not a disc. This highlights a crucial point. Even when you had photographic evidence, early media accounts sometimes significantly shaped public perception.
The power of the headline.
Definitely. The media's choice of words, focusing on that football shape, it might have influenced subsequent reports, or at least it reflected the prevailing confusion at the time about what exactly people were seeing. It potentially created widespread misunderstandings about their actual appearance.
So how much did early journalism, even with good intentions and the best available evidence, impact the collective understanding and maybe even the official investigation?
It's a great question. It demonstrates that early visual evidence, even when it seems clear, could still be open to significant interpretation and maybe misrepresentation by media outlets just eager for a compelling story.
Okay, so we've got astonishing sightings, like Arnold's, we've got a photograph, Billy Turnline's football. But what happens when one of these mysterious objects, or at least something related to them, actually lands or is found on the ground?
Right, physical evidence. That takes it to a whole new level.
That's precisely what happened in Wisconsin, leading to one of the more peculiar and certainly challenging early incidents that offered something tangible, even if it was confusing and highly debated.
This discovery, it was reported quickly to the Civil Air Patrol in Wisconsin, and it offered a tangible object for examination, even if its capabilities were, let's say, immediately doubted by authorities. So July 10th, 1947, a city electrician, his name isn't mentioned in these initial files, but his account is verified, found a disc-shaped object, 19 inches in diameter.
19 inches. Okay, not huge, but definitely disc-shaped.
Found it on the Jackson County Fairgrounds near Black River Falls, Wisconsin, around 3:03 in the afternoon. It was reported to authorities the very next day, July 11th.
And what was it made of? What did it look like?
The description in the FBI files is interesting. Possibly made of cardboard covered by a substance such as cardboard, or alternatively, cardboard painted with silver airplane dope.
Cardboard, seriously. Painted silver.
That's the description. Despite its seemingly humble, maybe even flimsy exterior, it reportedly contained internal components.
Like what?
Specifically, a tube and a small motor with a propeller attached to the side.
A motor and a propeller on a cardboard disc.
Apparently. It also featured an electric coil with the words Inspected TS stamped on it.
Inspected TS. Any idea what that means?
No clue given in these documents. Could be anything. Some wiring was burned, and it looked as though something might be missing, like it was damaged or incomplete.
Hmm. So, not exactly high-tech, maybe.
Well, a colonel from the Civil Air Patrol in Wisconsin, when he assessed it, expressed the opinion that this disc would not be able to fly by itself.
Okay, so doubt right away from the military side.
Yeah, implying it lacked sufficient power or design for sustained flight, maybe suggesting it was a prototype or a damaged component rather than a fully functional craft. The description, largely cardboard painted silver,
Yeah.
yet containing a motor and propeller, it immediately suggests something more conventional. Or maybe even a deliberate misdirection, trying to look like something it wasn't.
A hoax, perhaps.
It's certainly a possibility raised implicitly. There's no clear indication in these initial FBI documents of a prolonged, in-depth follow-up investigation into this specific object beyond that initial assessment, which raises the question, was it a genuine, albeit simple device, or is it a very elaborate prank designed to capitalize on the saucer craze that was exploding?
Right. It shows how tangible evidence, even when it seemed kind of rudimentary, presented a new challenge, often leading to maybe a quick conventional dismissal rather than a sustained, open-ended inquiry. Okay, but the plot thickens considerably with another Wisconsin incident. This one involves Father Joseph Brasky in Grafton, an even more dramatic and frankly bewildering story about a mysterious object.
Oh, Father Brasky.
He reported hearing a distinct bang early one Sunday morning around 5 a.m., and what he found on his church lawn was, well, let's just say it sparked a media circus and a tremendous amount of confusion, even for the FBI agents trying to track these things.
Father Brasky's "What Is It?" incident, and that's what he called it, is a truly fascinating blend of the mysterious and the mundane. Almost comical, really. And the early reports surrounding it are wildly contradictory. Creates a narrative that's just messy.
So what did he find? What was the object?
The object he found on the lawn of St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Grafton was quite specific. A steel plate, 19 inches in diameter, about 1/8 of an inch thick, and with saw teeth along its edge.
A steel plate with saw teeth, like a circular saw blade.
Sounds very much like it. 19 inches, same diameter as the Black River Falls object, interestingly enough.
Huh, okay.
Crucially, Father Brasky stated it was hot when he picks it up.
Hot, suggesting it had just landed or impacted, or had some power source.
Exactly. Suggesting it had either recently impacted or been heated by some internal mechanism that had wires and 2 tubes attached to it. The tubes were 1 inch in diameter and 3 inches long.
Wires and tubes on a saw blade.
That's the report. And the initial claim to authorities was that it struck a church in Grafton early yesterday, and even more dramatically, knocks the ball off the church lightning rod.
Knocked the ball off the lightning rod. So, physical impact, damage.
That was the claim. This physical evidence, the circular saw blade, tubes, wires, hot to the touch, reportedly causing structural damage. It certainly suggests something more significant than just a toy or a simple disc thrown there.
Yeah, much more than the cardboard disc.
Right. Yet, Father Brasky himself, he famously refused to call it a flying saucer. He emphatically called it a "what is it?"
What is it? Okay.
He even injected humor into the situation, joking about using his custom 12-foot cane.
His 12-foot cane.
Apparently, it folded into a walking stick but extended to 12 feet. He said he used it for reaching folks who poke. He joked about using it on the object.
Yeah.
And adding to the eccentricity, he reportedly passed out copies of his own publication, playfully titled Fish Tales, during interviews.
Fish tales. Okay, he sounds like quite a character.
Definitely. And this incident generated wildly conflicting media reports, just highlights the chaos of early information spreading. The United Press, for example, reported it as a circular saw with some devices attached, a relatively straightforward description.
Okay.
But in stark contrast, the Associated Press controversially stated that a circular saw had been found and a story had been obtained from a priest who had been drinking quite heavily.
Whoa. They went there, questioned his sobriety.
Directly questioned his credibility, yes. The FBI's own internal memo from the Milwaukee office, referencing a Milwaukee Sentinel article, suggested that some prankster had thrown it into the yard, perhaps with a firecracker attached, clearly leaning towards a mundane explanation, a prank.
So the FBI thought prankster, firecracker, maybe made it hot.
That seemed to be their working theory, or at least the one they recorded based on the newspaper. And perhaps most telling about the Bureau's initial cautious, often dismissive approach. The Milwaukee office was specifically instructed by the special agent in charge, SAC Johnson, to obtain details if Father Brasky made an official report to them, but explicitly stated that no inquiry should be conducted at the present due to the nature of the information.
So don't investigate unless he forces the issue. Why? too weird.
It implies a deliberate decision, yeah. Avoid legitimizing or giving further attention to an incident that seemed too bizarre or maybe potentially embarrassing to officialdom if it turned out to be just a drunken priest or a prank.
Interesting. So manage perception over exhaustive inquiry sometimes.
It seems that way in this case. This incident perfectly illustrates how early investigations face huge challenges. Unreliable information, eccentric witnesses, conflicting media portrayals, leading authorities to prioritize managing public perception, sometimes explicitly avoiding further investigation, even when there was perplexing physical evidence.
Right. Okay, so amidst these wild stories, high-speed objects, puzzling photos, bizarre physical finds like saw blades, some people were trying to bring a more, let's say, scientific lens to it all, or at least a healthy dose of skepticism.
Uh-huh. The debunking efforts started pretty quickly, too.
Our files show one particular, rather famous attempt to analyze supposed debris from a flying saucer to reveal its true nature. The conclusion, well, at least the one presented to the public, was rather mundane, to say the least.
Yeah, this specific scientific debunking attempt, even if the tone was dismissive, it reflects a broader effort. Applying conventional explanations to these unconventional phenomena right from the start of the craze. Dr. C.L. Kenny, he was the head of the chemistry department at Creighton College of Dentistry in Omaha. He stated that 2 students, under his direct supervision, analyzed what were purported to be ashes collected from a flying saucer. Someone gave them these ashes.
Okay, saucer ashes. What did they find?
Their chemical analysis, according to Dr. Kenny, found common elements: sodium, potassium, iron, aluminum, carbonate, sulfate, and burnt carbon.
Sounds like, well, burnt stuff.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kenny's rather dismissive conclusion, which was immediately given to the press and widely reported, was succinct. He said, "This is the same thing you would get from ordinary fireplace bacon."
Fireplace bacon. Did people cook bacon in fireplaces commonly then? Or just burnt residue?
Likely just meant common burnt residue, something utterly mundane. The point was to trivialize it.
So dismissive. Whether he actually had legitimate saucer ashes or just debunked some random burnt stuff, his public statement certainly played into the narrative that these sightings had earthly, even trivial explanations.
Absolutely. And it raises that important question again. How much were early investigations influenced by a desire to quickly rationalize and dismiss these reports, particularly in the public sphere?
Rather than thoroughly explore every possibility, no matter how unusual it seemed.
Exactly. This swift public presentation of a conventional, even dismissive scientific explanation, regardless of the rigor of the analysis, we don't know how carefully they did it, played a powerful role. It shaped early narratives and potentially curtailed further, more open-minded investigation. So this initial series of high-profile sightings, especially Arnold's defining account and the discovery of physical objects like the Wisconsin disc and Father Brasky's "What is it?" it very quickly put the FBI on high alert. You see that clearly.
They had to react.
They had to. We see in these early documents that J. Edgar Hoover himself, the director, sent a direct memo to the War Department regarding flying insecans.
Hoover got involved personally, right away.
It seems so. Their official stance, laid out in FBI Bulletin Number 42, Series 1947, this went out to all field offices, was clear and cautious. Field offices were instructed to investigate each instance to ascertain whether or not it is a bona fide sighting, an imaginary one, or a prank.
So investigate, but categorize it.
Yeah.
Real, imaginary, or prank.
Right. The bulletin provided specific guidelines, asking agents to note the exact location, date, time, direction of flight, detailed description, estimated speed, altitude, unique features, number of witnesses, standard investigative procedure, but applied to this.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI was acutely aware, the bulletin notes, that individuals might report seeing flying discs for various reasons. These included the relatively benign, like seeking personal publicity, which they just viewed as a nuisance.
Okay.
Or the more concerning possibility of causing hysteria among the public.
Mass panic.
Right. But they also considered a far more sinister and politically charged possibility. This is where the Cold War really comes in. That sightings might have been made by subversive individuals for the purpose of interesting a mass hysteria, or fear of a secret Russian weapon.
Wow. Subversives using flying saucer stories? Or actual secret Russian tech?
Both were on the table as possibilities they needed to consider. It reveals this deep undercurrent of Cold War anxiety barely 2 years after World War II ended, already permeating the official response.
You can feel the tension.
Absolutely. And adding to this mounting concern, military aircraft were actively hunting the skies over the Pacific Coast states. For example, Oregon National Guard P-51 fighter planes were routinely cruising the Cascade Mountains in constant radio contact with each other. And significantly, the files note, all carried photographic equipment with a mandate to capture visual evidence if they saw anything.
So the military was actively looking, cameras ready.
Very actively. Air Force intelligence documents from this period indicate a serious concern. They worried the objects could potentially be radio-controlled bombs or atom bombs, which are circling the orbit of the Earth.
Atom bombs circling the Earth. That's terrifying.
A truly terrifying prospect in the atomic age, yeah. General Shulgin of the Air Corps indicated he wanted the FBI's help in locating and questioning individuals who first sighted the disks to try and determine their origin. He also expressed a desire to have all scientists and military intelligence findings shared, and indicated Air Corps reports would be made available to the Bureau, a clear push for interagency collaboration.
Because the stakes felt potentially enormous.
Enormous. The FBI's immediate and overriding concern, based on these first documents, seems to be national security and public order, viewing UFO reports primarily through the lens of Cold War anxieties, potential foreign threats, or domestic psychological vulnerabilities.
Rather than just as an unknown scientific phenomenon to be objectively studied first.
That seems secondary, at least initially. A security aspect felt paramount.
So what does this all mean for understanding these early days? The FBI wasn't just passively observing, they were actively trying to control the narrative, understand motivations, and maybe most importantly, prevent widespread panic or exploitation by, hostile powers.
Precisely.
This fundamental shift from just observing to active investigation and immediate speculation about subversive individuals or secret Russian weapons, it tells us a huge amount about those Cold War anxieties simmering right under the surface of post-war America.
It really does.
And the gravity of their concerns, considering atom bombs circling the Earth, it highlights the immense pressure officials were under to make sense of something totally unprecedented.
Yeah. And that leads us to consider, how much were these investigations driven by genuine scientific curiosity versus that pressing need to manage public perception and stop panic? The early documents reveal this wide range of theories, both conventional and highly speculative, just circulating within official circles, as they grappled with what to tell the public and maybe what to believe themselves.
What kind of theories were floating around?
Well, several sources within the documents, particularly experts consulted by the FBI, attributed sightings to simple optical illusions or reflections. They suggested quirks of eyesight, especially when looking at things at the limit of sight, could cause them to appear round or nearly so, regardless of their real shape.
The limits of human perception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also cited instances where light reflected from the bodies of airplanes that soon identified themselves by changing course and coming near enough to be seen distinctly could be mistaken for something unknown, just misidentified planes.
Okay, standard explanations. What else?
Beyond optics, psychological factors were heavily considered. The force of suggestion was frequently blamed.
Like mass hysteria.
Exactly, causing people to suddenly see objects. One report triggering a cascade of similar, but perhaps imagined sightings. The idea that people would just say, oh, gee, I see it too, out of psychological influence.
Right. The power of suggestion.
Then in a more unusual vein, there were even inventor claims.
Inventor claims, like people saying they built the saucers.
Sort of. One particularly interesting case was A.D. Cross, a watchmaker from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He actually claimed he had invented the flying saucer and submitted it to the War Department previously, implying the sightings were of his own forgotten terrestrial invention.
Huh. Did they take that seriously?
Probably not for long, but it's in the file. Another inventor from Chicago worried that his 1945 multi-spring catapult invention might have led to leakage of information, potentially allowing a device to catapult a disc and in silence for several miles, suggesting his tech could be behind it.
Okay, so people coming out of the woodwork with explanations.
Yeah, highlights the desperation maybe to find any terrestrial explanation. And amidst all this, naturally, there was early skepticism from scientists in the military. Director J.S. Nassau of Case Institute of Technology, for instance, was quoted as inclined to think the reports are hoaxes, a common academic sentiment. Similarly, Captain Tom Brown, an Army Air Force spokesman, stated publicly that while they were not dismissing the possibility that there's something to it, they were also not dismissing the possibility that it's all a hoax, a very guarded, non-committal stance.
Covering all bases.
Pretty much. The recurring theme across all these early theories is this cautious, often skeptical approach, aimed at maintaining control over information and public order while still acknowledging the fundamental mystery and the need to find some explanation. The dominant early strategy seemed to have been offering conventional, often dismissive, explanations, optics, psychology inventors, hoaxes to manage public perception and contain potential panic.
Wow. Okay, so what we've seen in just these first few FBI documents, these first three, it's truly the chaotic birth of a global mystery. From Kenneth Arnold's astonishing high-speed sighting that sparked it all,
Huh?
to Billy Turenline's flying football photo with that weird white mist,
Yeah, the mist is strange.
and the bizarre physical objects found in Wisconsin, the cardboard disc, Father Brasky's hot saw blade that maybe hit a church. These early reports reveal this complex, unsettling mix, genuine perplexity, sensational media narratives, and these desperate official attempts to just make sense of the unexplainable.
It's a very vivid snapshot, isn't it? A nation grappling with something entirely new, something that defied easy categorization and challenged everything they thought they knew, scientifically and militarily. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these initial reactions, investigations, attempts at explanation, they were absolutely foundational. They set the stage for decades of fascination, speculation, official secrecy surrounding unidentified aerial phenomena, shaped the entire narrative of what we now call UFOs.
Right, this is ground zero.
Exactly. And this is just the very first deep dive into 3 of the 16 primary documents the FBI holds on these specific incidents from July and August of 1947. We've barely scratched the surface of these incredibly fascinating files. The story contained within them is far, far from over.
So, as these early documents hint at all these varied possibilities, from simple pranks and misidentified planes or hoaxes to potential secret military experiments, or maybe even advanced unknown origins, it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? How did these initial tentative, often skeptical responses from government agencies evolve as more and more reports poured in? Did they become more open, more secretive?
That's the big question moving forward.
And what deeper secrets might these next 13 FBI documents hold about what was truly happening in our skies during that bewildering summer of '47? If you're as curious as we are and you want us to continue this deep dive to unpack the next set of these FBI documents, please let us know. Your curiosity, honestly, it fuels our next exploration.